Today we will have a bill before us, ostensibly titled and ostensibly about the subject of domestic terrorism. But this bill would be more accurately called the Democrat plan to brand and insult our police and soldiers as white supremacists and neo-Nazis. How insulting. I've met our nation's policemen. I've visited with policemen across Kentucky, through our big cities and small, and I've not met one policeman motivated or consumed with any kind of sort of racial rage. What I've met are proud policemen and women who care about the people that they protect in our society, but also who care about their fellow officers. I've not met one policeman who would not defend their partner, black, white, Jewish, Christian, Muslim. I don't see the kind of sort of insulting rage that the Democrats have for our police. I've met our country's young soldiers and Marines. I don't meet racists. I don't meet white supremacists. I don't meet neo-Nazis. I meet young men and women who are courageous enough to defend our country. And what an insult it is to put a bill before this House that says, oh, somehow our Marines are consumed with white supremacy and neo-Nazism. How insulting. In fact, I don't think you could look at a group of young men and women who are more adapted to the times, who are more accepting of their fellow men, and I have never heard of a Marine say, oh, I'm not going to carry my fallen colleague out because he's African American. I've never heard of an African American Marine say, I'm not going to carry out my fellow Marine because they're white. If there's any kind of grouping in our country more accustomed to treating people because they're your fellow soldier and your friend, it's the military. To insinuate that the military is consumed with white supremacy is an insult. To insinuate that our soldiers are somehow these terrible people, these neo-Nazis and white supremacists, that we're going to get a new government agency to police the Marines. The Marines are a proud part of our military. Our soldiers are a proud part of our country. These are the people who do not see color, who do not see race, who do not see religion. These are the people who don't leave their fallen. You think the Marines go around saying, oh, we're going to leave our fallen if they have a certain race or religion? You don't see that. The Marines, the soldiers in our country, the people who defend our country, are the people who defend and love our country, are the least consumed with any kind of notion of race. How insulting. This bill states, as if it were a fact, in the beginning of Section 5, that this bill will create an interagency task force to analyze and combat white supremacist and neo-Nazi infiltration of the uniformed services and federal law enforcement. This is not just an insult to your local police or to the Marines or to the Army and to the Navy. This is an insult to the FBI. It's an insult to the Capitol Police. This bill says that they've been infiltrated. This says that our police are consumed with some kind of race rage. It's untrue and it's slander and it's scandalous, but it's predictable. This is the party that wants to defund the police. But this party not only wants to defund the police, they think the police are full of hatred and racism. It's not true. Every policeman in our country, every soldier in our country should look at this bill and say, who are these people? White supremacy and neo-Nazi infiltration of the Marines? That's not true. It's an insult to every Marine in our country. It's an insult to every soldier in our country. It's an insult to every policeman in our country. It's an insult to the Capitol Police. I don't see this in our country. I actually see our armed services as probably one of the areas where people intermix, regardless of race and religion, better than any segment. These are our young men and women who live in close quarters in barracks. These are our young men and women who go overseas. These are our young men and women who have given arms and legs. And I don't know of an example of some guy who says, oh yeah, we were blown up by an IED, but we decided to leave that guy because he's of a different race. How insulting. So you can have a task force to investigate our soldiers. This is a federal task force that is going to go in and investigate our soldiers for white supremacy. I guess read their emails, read what websites they go to, because the implication is they're guilty until they can prove themselves innocent. That's what this will set up. It will set up more of government agencies that presume your guilt. But it's an insult to our armed services, to our police, and to anybody who works in law enforcement. One might well ask if Democrats now that believe that the U.S. military and federal, state, and local police departments are all corrupted. Is there white supremacy and neo-Nazis running around our country? Look, when I visit even the larger cities in Kentucky, when I visit the Louisville Police Department, guess what? I see African Americans and whites working together, and brown and Hispanic, whatever you want to call people, all working together. I see high-ranking people in our department who are African American. I don't see that everybody's running around hating each other. I see black officers and white officers who work together as partners, who care about each other and would defend to the last breath their partner if they were shot in the line of duty. I've seen the officers who have been shot, black and white. I don't see any of them saying, oh yeah, well, we're not going to do anything because that person is of a certain race. This bill is an insult to every police officer in this country. This bill is an insult to everyone in our armed services. This bill says that the armed services have been infiltrated by white supremacy. So if you are a soldier in our country, if you are a policeman in our country, you need to let your congressman or senator know that you are not a white supremacist and that it is an insult for the Democrats to call you a white supremacist. It's an insult for the Democrats to say our police force is full of white supremacy, that our armed services is full of this. Everybody in this country who works in law enforcement should be outraged by this bill and should respond and say, no, that's not me, and that's not any of my colleagues. That's not what the Kentucky Police Force is about. That's not what the National Guard's about. That's not what the Marines are about. What an insult. What an insult. So what do? They set up a new department in the Homeland Security. Aren't Homeland Security federal too? Have they not been infiltrated as well? See, the implication of this bill is that all people are bad, that there's this great and worrisome thing that is infecting America, when the opposite is true. I was born in the 1960s. Every decade has gotten better. People get along better. We have more intermarriage between races. We have more integration within churches. I see less and less of this that everybody's saying is now infecting us. But they don't realize that they're insulting everyone. They're insulting the police. They're insulting our Marines. They're insulting our armed services. The bill creates two other departments. These essentially are departments that are going to be the thought police of the military. We just took down the Ministry of Truth, which was in the Department of Homeland Security. It took a couple of weeks for them to finally be ashamed that they were going to try to censor speech, and the Biden administration has canceled it, or at least put it on pause. But this bill will create two other agencies, two other thought police offices at the Department of Justice and the FBI. Seems like a self-defeating choice, since elsewhere in the bill we are told that federal law enforcement is completely infiltrated by white supremacists and neo-Nazis. But again, none of the bill makes sense. It doesn't make sense because it was a bill that was never intended to become law and won't. It's a dumb Washington talking points memo masquerading as legislation, but it's also a grave insult to anyone involved in law enforcement, anyone involved in the military. But congressional Democrats have gotten so radical, so extreme, so out of touch with the American people that when they read it, they think this is something worthwhile to do. It's a messaging bill for today. This bill will fail today, though, because the Democrats' message, hate the police, defund the police are terrible people, the military are terrible people, to slander the military and the police as racist and white supremacists, it has been roundly rejected by the American people and will continue to be.